Hello Earth, I'm Attila. Today I will talk about the Fooled by Randomness book, and this was a very interesting book about randomness and how it plays a part in our lives. And we attribute luck a very important part, like good luck. That's one of the main principal sayings in our languages, I think. So let's start. Don't take the quality of your knowledge too seriously. Randomness has a part in it. So there is not a single one theory that we know it is completely 100% right, because there may be a mistake in the testing. So a mistake that supported your statement. And if you repeat this testing, you have a much less likelihood of a certain randomness in it, but it is still likely. And probability is the acceptance of the lack of certainty in our knowledge. And chance favors the hardworking. So, for example, if you just buy one lottery ticket, you have much less chance of winning the lottery than the person who bought 100 lottery tickets. There is also a randomness in the stock market, but the journalists want to create a story to it. So there are a lot of random big ups and downs in the stock market, but many people read a lot into these things, because that's how journalists create a living, because they create a story around a random event, because they try to sound intelligent. And we as humans try to oversimplify things. We want to simplify things down, because there are a lot of things happening in this very complex world and we don't understand them. But this simplification is dangerous. So, for example, in the stock market, there are a lot of principles, there are a lot of things taking place, and we can't just simplify it to one single reason. And there is randomness where we think that it wasn't luck, but it was luck, and we underestimate the share of randomness in about everything, because randomness is a too abstract word for us. And we can't always judge the quality of people based on their raw performance and personal wealth. So if one person is very rich, we tend to think that then they must be very smart, or they must have done a lot for the society because the society rewarded them. But it's also possible that they won the lottery, or randomness helped them to gain this financial wealth. So we can't judge people based on their financial wealth. And being rich in a profession can mean how many of the people who entered the profession became rich. So let's compare a dentist and a rock musician. So if you enter the university for dentists, you have a 50% chance of completing that if you work hard. And if you are a dentist already, you have a 90% chance of becoming rich. But on the other hand, rock musicians, the famous rock musicians became very, very famous. But if you start playing rock music, you have a 0.0% chance of becoming a rock musician. So you have a much less probability of becoming famous in rock music than from becoming rich from being a dentist. And yes, randomness plays a part in a lot of things, but you can go crazy trying to figure it out every time, because our world is enormous. There are a lot of variations, and if you just try to figure out there is randomness, you will like become this conspiracy theorist, and you will go crazy. There are many possible histories, but our current one is a random route that we chose during that. So our history and our future and our past is based on a lot of random things happening, and it's completely random. So don't try to understand this. And unlike sciences, you can't experiment with history, so you can't go back in time and try different choice. Our mind is not designed to understand all the variables, and you can understand this by, for example, you are an investor and you have a stock portfolio, and you have an account worth of that portfolio, and you shouldn't like watch all the daily changes of your account worth. So instead, you should focus on the bigger monthly or even yearly trends, because the noise is less then and the random events play less part then. And evolution can also be fooled by randomness. And for example, you are on the tree eating an apple, and then the tiger comes, and like other people will have to run against the tiger, and the slowest will die. You can be the slowest, but because you are on the tree and you got lucky, you will survive. But like evolution means that the survivors will be better on average. Not all of them will be better than the past generation, but on average. And the probability has to be judged in connection with the magnitude of the outcome. So, for example, you are playing a game. 999 in 1000. So, fucking hell. In 999 scenarios out of 1000, you will win $1. But 1 in 1000 scenario is you lose $10,000. So even though the probability of you losing $10,000 is very small, you shouldn't play this game, because it is not worth playing. History is not the sole determiner of future performance. History teaches us that things never happened before do happen. So, for example, there was never social media before, so we don't know like these capital attacks how will play out, and there was not a World War I before, but like things do happen, because with randomness and with all these different scenarios and historical paths, a lot of new things can happen. And these new things are also fueled by rare events. So there is always some uncertainty when we are planning in the future. For example, nobody expected this COVID virus. So these rare events always happen and we can't predict them. And you can't enjoy your wealth for two reasons. So if you have money, you won't enjoy that for two reasons, because of two treadmills. The first is the social treadmill. You get rich, you move to a new neighborhood, and you are poor again, because you have to pay for the house and the standards of living are much higher then. And there is this psychological treadmill as well. You get used to wealth and revert to a set point of satisfaction. So, for example, you buy a couple of new cars, the fastest sport cars possible, but after a while you get bored of them and you will want to have a private jet. You will always want to have something bigger and more expensive. Then it talks about like this survivorship bias, and it means that we only see the successful results. And that's because the losers don't show up. So for example, let's take YouTube. There are countless successful YouTubers who have more than 1 million subscribers. But the problem is that we don't see all the people who wanted to be YouTubers, but they failed. So we only see like the big successful names, and we think that like everyone can easily be a YouTuber. They just have to try. And nobody accepts randomness in his own success, only his failure. So if you are successful, you made a great decision, you will say, yes, I made that great decision because I am smart. But if you failed, then you will blame others. And for example, you weren't lucky. And in technology, the best in that technology might not win. So for example, some guy has luck and captures a lot of the early market share, and then the network effect takes place. And the network effect takes place, and they will gain even more users, and more users will gain them even more users. So for example, Bill Gates is probably not the best computer programmer in his time. He was just in the right place at the right time, and he got lucky. And that's because he is like the fourth richest man in the earth. So in technology, either you win by a lot or you crash because and you won't gain market share because of this network effect. And we as humans are not good at understanding probabilities. Either we do something or not. So there are two possible paths for you. We don't care about the little nuances. So for example, there is a 5% chance of you winning there is 0.0% of you winning the lottery. There is 5% of you becoming a dentist. So we can't understand these probabilities, even if we see them, and even if we think that we understand them. And until now, we didn't need the efficient computation of the odds. So before this, we had simple lives, we were peasants and we were working in the fields, we didn't want to think a lot. But now we have this lot of scenarios, and we need this computation of the odds. And we don't have this skill. People overvalue their knowledge and underestimate the probability of their being wrong. So yeah, I can't add anything to that. And a compliment is always pleasant, regardless of its authorship. And this is something that manipulators know rather well. So even though you know that like that person is trying to manipulate you, you will still like be manipulated, because we always happy about a compliment. We are programmed to build loyalty to ideas in which we have invested time. And this is called married to a position. So for example, you bought a painting for $20,000 and the markets were in your favor, and that painting now is worth $40,000. So if you wouldn't buy that painting for $40,000, then you would be able to sell that painting and would still make a profit, and you would still make a good deal according to yourself. And this is called married to position. We just love that investment, or we like them and we don't want to sell them. Or you can think that like the worth of that painting will go up in the future, or you just want to avoid taxes and don't pay them at the moment. And the higher up you are in the corporate ladder, you get more compensation, because the idea is that the higher you up, the more contribution you do to the whole company, and you get more compensation because of that. but you have less evidence of their contribution to the company. So, like a person on the low level, you can look at their performance, how they perform compared to other employees. But in the top, the CEO, ideally they make very few very important decisions, but we can't know whether they made the right decisions or not. Maybe we can look at like how much money did they make, but like we never know if the other possibility would have been worse or better, because you can't experiment with history. You can't go back in time and try another scenario. And we are constantly optimizing. We want to buy the best car for the lowest possible price, and we also want to have this clear-cut schedule when we just spend enough time on everything, but we don't spend too much time. But we as humans are not made for this fixed and very clear-cut schedule. We are free men, and we just want to do things that interest us in that moment. And I would like to do that as well, but like the problem is that, like, for example, I'm in school and I have this fixed schedule. And the existence of noise leads us to avoid reading too much into variations. So because some people know that the stock market goes up and down a little bit, a lot, and we don't create a story to every one of these little news. Like the overall summary of this book was that we favor the visible, the embedded, the personal, the narrated, and the tangible, and we scorn the abstract. So randomness is a very abstract thing. We can't predict it, we can't measure it, we don't even know that it exists a lot of times. And so that's why a lot of people don't like it. That's true for most of humanity. We like things that you can touch, because we think that then we can trust them. So that was this book. It was very interesting. You should subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow my podcast if you are interested in things like that. I create videos every day. My channel is for people who don't have enough time, but they know that reading is great. I will read one book every day and share my thoughts and the things that I learned from this. I also have a Twitter account, you can reach me there. I will link everything in the description. So, thank you for coming in. Bye bye.